My name is Dr. Mara Keaton, 38 years old. The hospital corridors still hummed in my bones when I got home that night. Fluorescent light ghosts, echoing monitors, the faint smell of antiseptic that clung to my coat like a second conscience. I'd spent Christmas Eve in the ER doing chest compressions on a man who insisted he was just tired. He was also blue. It was that kind of shift. When I pushed open my front door at 11:45 p.m., I expected silence. Maybe a dark house, the faint comfort of normal. Instead, I saw Abby's boots by the door. For a second, my mind made the wrong leap. Someone's bleeding. Then I noticed her coat slumped on the armrest, her overnight bag still zipped, and there she was, my 16-year-old daughter, curled on the couch, asleep in that tense way you sleep when you don't trust the furniture. "Abby," I whispered. She startled awake like she'd only been pretending to rest. Her voice was small, practiced. "Hey, Mom, you're home early. Why are you here?" She hesitated, eyes darting toward the window as if the right answer might be hiding outside. "They said there wasn't room." I blinked. "Room where? At the table?" Her nod was so faint it almost wasn't one. "Yeah, Grandma said it was a full house this year." Her voice cracked halfway through. She tried to patch it with a shrug. They weren't expecting me. I stood there, words heavy and useless. Abby went on quietly, filling the silence the way you do when you think your story sounds unbelievable. She said all the beds were taken, that maybe I should come another time. "Did anyone offer to drive you home?" "Nope." "Did they let you eat?" Another shrug. Table was packed. Lily was in my usual seat. Grandpa was talking to her like she'd solved world hunger. I didn't want to make things weird. Then she gestured toward the kitchen. I made toast. A single slice sat on a paper towel. Cold, bent, half a banana beside it like punctuation. "That was your dinner?" She tried to laugh, failed. "Wasn't hungry anyway." Her voice trembled, then steadied like she'd scolded herself for feeling. But the edges of her control were crumbling. Her breath hitched once, twice, and then tears came slow, quiet, like a faucet you can't quite turn off. "They made it sound like I was imposing," she whispered, "like showing up on time was rude." She stared at her hands. "I even brought cookies." I sat beside her, wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me instantly, the way a tree leans into the wind after standing too long on its own. "I know they don't like you," she said after a while, "but I thought, I'm just the kid. I thought it didn't apply to me." I wanted to tell her it didn't, that I'd protect her from all of it, but I couldn't make myself lie. She pressed her sleeve to her face, trying to erase the evidence. "They said they didn't have room," she muttered again, as if repetition could make it logical. When she finally fell asleep against my shoulder, I just sat there, watching her chest rise and fall. The quiet pressed against my ears. Somewhere down the street, a house still glowed with leftover laughter. I turned off the lamp and went into the kitchen. Her overnight bag sat neatly by the counter. The zipper hadn't been touched. She'd packed the sweater my mother said she liked, and a small tin of cookies she'd baked herself, all untouched. That's when the real cold settled in. Not from outside, but from the realization that they'd looked my daughter in the eye, this brave, gentle kid who wanted nothing more than to be included and decided she didn't belong. They didn't mean no space. They meant not you. I stood in the dim light, thinking of every "just this once" I'd agreed to. The electric bill, the dental copay, the mortgage I'd been quietly covering for 7 years on the modest 2-bedroom house they lived in, rent-free. When I first handed my parents those keys, my mother had cried. "You're such a blessing," she'd said, her voice soft with pride and something sharper underneath, ownership. Our girl made it. And I'd believed her, for a while. I kept paying the bills. When their car broke down, I co-signed the new one. When Dad's back went out, I used my insurance to get him physical therapy. And when my sister Janelle called about her daughter Lily's STEM summer camp, $1,200, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I almost said yes. Almost. "You of all people should understand," Janelle said. "You went to school forever. You're a doctor. This could change Lily's life." I told her I couldn't. "I'm already paying for Mom and Dad's house, their insurance, half their bills. Maybe apply for financial aid?" Her tone turned razor thin. "Wow, must be nice sitting on everything and still being stingy. She's your niece, Mara. You're just jealous because Lily's actually going places." That line hit harder than I wanted to admit. The next week, Mom called. "You know, maybe you could just cover the deposit. We'd pay you back." "You still owe me for the car," I reminded her. Long pause. then a sigh that said I was ungrateful for mentioning it. When I declined, I could almost hear the family group chat ignite. Janelle stirring the pot, Mom fanning the flames, Dad keeping silent but not neutral. Now, watching Abby's small figure under the blanket, I finally understood. The no room speech wasn't a coincidence. It was punishment, neat and wordless. A message wrapped in manners. In the hallway, framed family photos lined the wall. I'd never really noticed before how symmetrical they were. Cameron's graduation, Janelle's wedding, Lily's award ceremony. My own photo, from med school, sat half-cropped in the corner, tilted like an afterthought. Last year's Christmas picture had 28 smiling faces and, in the back row, one empty chair. I stared at it for a long moment. I could almost hear my father again. From when I was 12. You sure you're mine? He'd laughed when he said it, but I remembered staying awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it meant to belong to people who never quite claimed you. I leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of every quiet insult I'd excused as their way. For years, I'd told myself that providing meant healing, that love could be measured in receipts. But that night, watching the outline of my daughter's sleeping face in the dim glow, I knew something irreversible had cracked. I didn't shout, didn't drive over there demanding apologies. That kind of drama would only feed them. Instead, I opened the junk drawer, pulled out a thick envelope, and set it on the counter. My hands shook just enough to make the paper whisper. Inside would go the words they'd never expect from me. No anger, no exclamation marks, just finality. Because there's turning the other cheek, and then there's turning away from anyone who looks at your child and says, "There's no room." The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and Abby's breathing. I sat down with a pen. And I started to write. The morning after Christmas carries a strange quiet, like the world hasn't decided whether to feel guilty or hungover. Frost clung to the edges of the windshield as my husband Daniel started the car. We didn't speak much. His hand rested on my knee, not comforting, exactly, but solid, a small anchor against the storm brewing in my chest. The letter sat in my lap, folded with surgical precision, my signature pressed neatly at the bottom. I'd written it after watching Abby sleep, each word sharper than the last. It wasn't dramatic, just honest. I listed every expense I'd covered, every bill, every kindness mistaken for obligation. And then I ended it plainly. 60 days to vacate. Property owned by Dr. Mara Keaton. Effective immediately. When we pulled up to my parents' house, the driveway was crowded. 2 extra cars that weren't theirs. Probably relatives lingering for leftovers. My pulse ticked higher. "Are you sure you want to do this yourself?" Daniel asked quietly. "I need to," I said. "They'll never believe it otherwise." The house looked smaller than I remembered, like time had shrunk it to fit their entitlement. I walked up the path, snow crunching under my boots, and tucked the envelope between the screen door and the frame. I didn't knock right away, just stood there for a breath. "Let's go," Daniel murmured. We were halfway to the car when I heard it, the metallic creak of the screen door, the soft slap of slippers on concrete. "My mother!" She bent down, robe tied unevenly, hair still in rollers. The same robe she'd bragged about getting 90% off last Black Friday. She plucked the envelope from the doorframe, squinting at my handwriting like it was a foreign language. "What on earth?" she muttered, tearing it open. Her eyes skimmed, then froze. "Mara," she breathed, almost in disbelief, then louder. "Frank, get out here! She's throwing us out!" The front door banged open. My father appeared in yesterday's clothes, glasses crooked on his nose. "What the hell is this?" Daniel shifted beside me, but I stayed still. From behind them came the shuffle of pajama pants and a half-awake voice. Janelle, clutching a mug. "What's going on?" My mother pointed at me like she was directing traffic for a crime scene. "Your sister's lost her damn mind. She's evicting us." Janelle blinked, then looked at me with that familiar mixture of pity and superiority. "Mara, seriously? On Christmas?" "It's the day after," I said quietly. "Same thing." She rolled her eyes. "You can't just—" But I'd already turned toward the car. I wasn't going to argue in the driveway like some unhinged stranger on the local news. We drove off as my mother's voice split the cold air. "You ungrateful little—" The rest got swallowed by the wind. By the time we got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. I ignored it at first. Then it rang again. And again. The 6th call broke me. I picked up. "How dare you!" my mother shrieked. "You've lost your damn mind, Mara, after everything we've done for you." I held the phone away from my ear. Her words still stabbed through the speaker. In the background, I heard my father shouting, "You do this. You're no daughter of ours." No mention of Abby, not one. Did you even ask why? I said finally. Ask why, she spat. You embarrassed us. Everyone saw the letter. What are we supposed to tell people? Maybe the truth, I said. Don't get smart with me, she snapped. You always think you're smarter than everyone. Always have. That apparently was the original sin. Being different. Being me. I hung up. My phone buzzed again immediately. Then came the texts. Mom, you'll regret this. Dad, we raised you better. Janelle, this is going to ruin your reputation. Think of your career. Oh, honey, my patients don't care where my parents live. By evening, I'd counted 32 missed calls, 14 texts, 3 voicemails, even one from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Not my place, but this feels extreme. You only get one mom. I didn't answer any of them. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw her, my mother again, still in that robe, the eviction letter clutched and crumpled in one hand. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She didn't wait. You're really doing this? She hissed. After everything we've done for you? I stayed calm. You mean the house I bought for you? The bills I paid? The health coverage I arranged because your Medicare didn't cover your medication? She flinched, but only for a heartbeat. We raised you, she said, straightening her spine. We gave you everything. You didn't even let my daughter eat dinner, I said softly. Her mouth fell open, then closed again. Don't be dramatic. There wasn't enough room. There were 28 people there. Even a neighbor, she snapped. Like that made it better. I took a slow breath. This isn't cruelty, Mom. It's consequence. Oh, for God's sake, she said, suddenly animated. Stop pretending you're some martyr. You're tearing your family apart over a misunderstanding. She held up the letter like evidence in a trial. And now you're threatening your own parents. She tore the paper in half, right down the center, eyes locked on mine the entire time. There, she said with a smirk. That's done. Now, if you want us to forgive you, you'll pay for Lily's science camp and drop this ridiculous tantrum. It was almost impressive, the way she pivoted from villain to victim without losing breath. I didn't respond, because that was the moment I finally understood. She hadn't taken me seriously. Not when I was a child obsessed with anatomy books, not when I was a med student working double shifts, not even now, standing here as a woman who'd built everything they took for granted. To her, I was still the awkward kid who didn't know her place. She thought I wouldn't follow through. She was wrong. Go home, Mom, I said quietly. She opened her mouth to argue, but something in my tone must have cut through. She spun on her heel and marched down the steps, muttering about how I'd lost my soul to money. When the door clicked shut behind her, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like aftermath. Daniel came into the hall. You okay? No, I said, but I'm done pretending to be the villain in their story. That night, I sat at my desk, the shredded remains of my mother's tantrum playing in my mind. I opened my laptop and found a number I'd been too proud to call before. When the voice on the other end answered, calm and professional, I exhaled. I need legal assistance regarding an eviction, I said. Whose property? The man asked. Mine. A brief pause, then the scratch of pen on paper. I assume you want it formal? Yes, I said. Formal and final. The lawyer's office was small, efficient, and smelled faintly of printer ink and rain. I sat across from him, hands folded, while he adjusted his glasses and skimmed the documents I'd brought. Title deed, mortgage records, a neat binder of 7 years' worth of payments, every check signed by me. He didn't look surprised, just methodical. I assume you'd like a formal eviction notice, he said finally, tone as neutral as weather. I nodded. 60 days. That's generous. More than they ever gave me. He made a note, then glanced up. This will get messy. It already is. When I walked out of that office, the sky had begun to drizzle, soft and steady, the kind of rain that feels like a confession. I pulled my coat tighter and realized, for the first time, that I wasn't shaking. Not with rage, not with doubt, just clarity. 2 days later, the official envelope arrived at my parents' address. Registered mail, signature required. I didn't need to see their reaction. I could hear it in the silence that followed. No calls, no texts, just a pause in the family noise that was almost louder than the shouting had been. Then the bills started coming again. The automatic drafts for their electricity, the water, the cable, the medical reimbursements, all of it I'd been quietly covering, stopped. I logged into each account, canceled autopay, closed the loop, one by one, like cutting cords that had been strangling me under the name of love. The next day, Janelle posted a photo on social media. her smiling between my parents at brunch, captioned, "Family means forgiveness." It got 30 likes. 2 from cousins I hadn't heard from since residency. The performance was in full swing. 3 days later, my Aunt Elaine showed up. She was the good aunt, always baking something, always playing mediator. When I opened the door, she stood there with a tin of cookies and a rehearsed look of concern. "Mara," she said gently, "I just want to talk." I stepped aside. She took a seat at the kitchen table, glancing around the house like it might reveal some secret motive for my actions. "This doesn't sound like you," she began carefully. "Throwing your parents out over a misunderstanding?" I poured tea for both of us. Neither of us touched it. "You heard their version," I said. "Now hear mine." I told her everything. The house deed in my name, the mortgage I'd paid, the medical bills, the car loans, the endless "just this once" that never ended. I told her about Christmas Eve, about Abby's cold toast, and the 28 chairs filled by everyone except her. Aunt Elaine went very still. "They didn't mention that," she said quietly. "Of course they didn't. I thought," she trailed off, eyes glistening, "I thought maybe you were being harsh, but they made it sound like you just snapped." I laughed softly, not kindly. They've been telling that story my whole life. For a while, the only sound was the clock ticking. She picked up her tea, then set it down again. "They said you refused to help with Lily's camp," she offered weakly. "I did, because I was already paying for everyone else's lives." Her gaze dropped. "I didn't know." "They didn't tell you," I corrected. She nodded slowly, then stood. "I'll talk to them," she murmured. But we both knew what that meant. Nothing would change. They'd twist it before it reached their ears. Still, when she left, there was something in her face that looked almost like apology. The next morning, an email from my real estate agent. "Interested buyer, family with 2 kids. They love the neighborhood. Wants vacant possession." I stared at the message. Vacant possession. Vacant is a sterile word. It doesn't mean empty. It means cleared of history. I called Daniel. "It's time to list it," I said. "You're sure?" "Yes." By the end of the week, the photos were online. Bright rooms with polished floors, sunlight spilling across the same space my parents once called home. The comments rolled in fast. "Good schools, great area, nice yard." No one looking at those photos would ever imagine the arguments, the guilt, the quiet humiliation buried under that roof. The lawyer called 2 days later. "They haven't acknowledged receipt." "They signed for it." "Yes, but they're pretending it never happened." Then we proceed. The official process moved like slow machinery. Paper stamped, certified, delivered again. I paid every fee without hesitation. I'd learned the hard way that freedom isn't free. One night, I caught Abby in the kitchen staring at her reflection in the oven door. "Are they mad?" she asked softly. "Yes." "Are you?" I smiled faintly. "Not anymore." She hesitated. "Do you think Grandma hates me?" I swallowed hard. "I think Grandma doesn't understand love the way she should." Abby nodded, like she understood something deeper than I'd said. That same week, I received a message from an unknown number. "You're destroying your family." For what? Pride? No name. But I didn't need one. My mother's guilt always spoke in riddles about pride. Daniel wanted to reply. I told him not to. "They expect us to argue," I said. "Let silence be the answer." Still, at night, lying in bed, I kept hearing my father's voice from that first phone call. "You're no daughter of ours." For years, I'd chased their approval like oxygen. Now I finally understood the cost. The silence stretched another week. Then Aunt Elaine texted. "I didn't understand before. I do now." It was only 6 words, but it felt like permission to exhale. 1 week before the deadline, the lawyer called again. "They still haven't moved." "Then we proceed," I said. "Do you want to be there?" "No." I didn't need to watch the undoing to know it was happening. Some endings don't need witnesses. They just need to be real. That night, the rain returned, soft against the windows. Abby sat beside me, sketching quietly in her notebook. "What happens after they're gone?" she asked. "Peace," I said simply, "for both of us." She smiled faintly, uncertain but hopeful. "Does peace mean we never talk to them again?" "Peace means we don't let them hurt us again," I said. She seemed to accept that. Her pencil moved again, the sound small and steady. Upstairs in my study, I opened my laptop one more time and checked the agent's update. Offer confirmed. Sale pending. Vacant possession required. It was finally real. The house sold faster than anyone expected. Good schools, quiet street, small backyard with an oak tree that looked photogenic in every season. Families lined up to see it. To them, it was opportunity. To me, it was release. My lawyer called that Monday morning. They've been officially notified, he said. The sheriff's department will handle the handover if necessary. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Let it happen quietly. When the day came, I didn't go. I made breakfast for Abby instead. Pancakes with strawberries, the kind she used to beg for on weekends. We ate at the kitchen counter, sunlight stretching across the tile. The silence was heavy, but not sad, just final. By afternoon, my phone lit up with messages. A cousin. Heard they're out. Brutal. Another. You okay? I didn't reply. There's no right emoji for closure. That evening, Daniel found me on the porch. It's done, he said softly. I nodded. I know. He hesitated. You don't want to see the place one last time? No, I said. I've seen enough ghosts. But in my mind, I pictured it anyway. The thud of boxes, the scrape of furniture, the clatter of porcelain dishes that once carried every polite insult disguised as dinner. The sound of history being packed into cardboard. Somewhere inside that noise, a picture frame probably cracked. Maybe the one from last Christmas, 28 smiles and one empty chair. Fitting. 2 days later, Janelle called. I almost didn't answer. Mara, she said in a voice sharpened by exhaustion. I took them in. Of course she did. The dutiful daughter claiming her crown. That's generous, I said flatly. Her breath hitched. Generous. You dumped our parents like garbage. I asked them to take responsibility. There's a difference. Silence. Then, they're miserable, Mara. Mom says you've turned everyone against her. Dad barely talks. The kids can't even eat breakfast without being criticized. I'm drowning here. I let her talk. She wanted sympathy, or at least validation. I can't do this, she said finally, voice breaking. They hate my cooking. They hate my husband. They said my house smells like dogs. I almost smiled. My mother had once said the same about mine. What do you want from me, Janelle? Just a little help. Enough for a rental deposit so they can move out. I'll cover the rest. No, I said quietly. Her tone sharpened. They're our parents. And they're the people who told my daughter there wasn't room for her at Christmas. That was a misunderstanding, she said, louder now, desperate. They didn't mean it like that. Then explain it, I said. Explain how 28 chairs fit everyone but her. Janelle didn't answer. I watched Abby make toast on Christmas Eve, I continued. She ate it cold. She thought she'd done something wrong just by showing up. The line went silent for a long time. Finally, she whispered, You're really not going to help. No, Janelle, I already did. For years. She exhaled hard, a sound between disbelief and surrender. You know what? You always think you're the hero. You're not. You're just mean. Maybe, I said, but I'm finally free. She hung up. 3 weeks later, she was on my doorstep, hair pulled into a frazzled bun, eyes rimmed red. She didn't even say hello. I can't do it anymore, she said. They're impossible. They fight constantly. Dad complains about the noise. Mom says my kids are spoiled. They refuse to share a bathroom. I need them gone. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You could ask them to leave. I did, she whispered. They called me ungrateful, said I'd end up alone like you. That one stung, even if it was recycled. They need a rental, she said, wringing her hands. Just help with the deposit, Mara. You make good money. Please. I shook my head slowly. You watched them turn my daughter away and said nothing. That was your choice. This is mine. Her jaw clenched. You're colder than I thought. Maybe I learned it from them. She looked at me for a long moment, then turned and walked down the steps. Her shoulders slumped, the way mine had so many times before. A week later, she kicked them out too. They found a rental across town. 2 rooms, 1 heater, the kind of place where wallpaper curls at the corners. Their pension barely covered food and rent. The Christmas lights they'd hung for years stayed boxed in the closet. I heard from a cousin that Mom was telling everyone I'd cut them off without warning, that I was unstable, that I'd always been jealous of Janelle. I didn't bother defending myself. Instead, I gathered every bill I'd ever paid, the mortgage, the utilities, the medical coverage, and forwarded the receipts to the extended family, along with a copy of the notarized eviction letter. Most didn't reply. One cousin just wrote, wow. Another sent a thumbs up emoji. Silence again. The kind that meant people finally knew the truth but didn't know where to put it. A month later, I ran into Aunt Elaine at the grocery store. She smiled carefully, then reached for the same brand of coffee I did. I spoke to your mother, she said. She's different. Different how? She keeps saying you'll come to your senses, that you'll forgive her. I raised an eyebrow. She still thinks forgiveness is a transaction. Elaine sighed. I think she's scared. She should be, I said. She's finally facing herself. Elaine gave a small, sad smile. You did what you had to do. Doesn't make it easier, though. No, I admitted, but easy and right rarely travel together. When I got home, Abby was on the porch, painting. She glanced up at me. Grandma texted me, she said. What did she say? Just, I miss you. I sat beside her. What did you reply? Nothing. Good, I said softly. Abby dipped her brush in blue paint. Does it ever stop hurting? It fades, I said, like a bruise. We watched the sunset bleed across the sky. Somewhere my phone buzzed with another unknown number. I didn't check. I'd learned to let unanswered calls die quietly. That night I dreamed of the old house. Empty, clean, sunlight spilling through sheer curtains. No shouting, no guilt, just space. Vacant possession. It sounded cold on paper, but in my dream, it felt like peace. 2 years later, the air inside our home feels different, quieter, lighter, like the walls finally exhaled. Abby's 17 now, finishing her last year of high school. Her laughter comes easier these days, her confidence steadier. She's studying what she loves, environmental design, a field she says blends art and logic. I see pieces of myself in her curiosity, but none of the fear that once shaped me. We're sitting on the porch, sipping iced tea in the afternoon light. The oak tree in our yard has grown taller, its branches spreading like a map of second chances. You know what's weird? Abby says, watching the leaves shift. I don't miss them. I smile faintly. Neither do I. She takes a sip, thoughtful. Sometimes I feel bad about that. Don't, I say softly. Missing someone doesn't prove love. Protecting your peace does. She leans against the railing, letting the sun touch her face. It's strange how normal everything feels now. That's what healing is, I tell her. It feels like nothing at first. Then one day you realize it's everything. Inside, the radio hums a soft melody, and for once the silence between songs doesn't ache. The sale from my parents' old house paid for Abby's college fund and cleared the last of my own student loans. It also bought something less visible, a quiet mind. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that Christmas Eve, how easily cruelty can disguise itself as tradition. How my mother said, "It's a full house this year," as if love required a seating chart. But I don't linger there long anymore. The past has a gravity that only works if you stand still. My phone buzzes on the table beside me. An unknown number again. For a moment, I consider ignoring it. Then, curiosity wins. Unknown. Hope you're proud of what you've done. No name, just accusation wrapped in familiarity. I can almost hear my mother's tone, part guilt, part theater. Without hesitation, I delete it. Daniel steps outside, drying his hands on a dish towel. Spam? He asks. Ghosts, I say. He nods. Block them? Already did. He kisses my forehead. Dinner's ready. After he goes back in, I notice an envelope sitting near the mail pile. No return address, just my name in looping handwriting. Aunt Elaine's script. I open it carefully. Inside is a short note. I understand now. I'm sorry it took so long. Taped to the paper is an old photograph, our family's Christmas portrait from years ago. Everyone smiling too wide. And in the back row, that empty chair again, the one we never talked about. I trace the outline of the chair with my thumb, then slide the photo back into the envelope. Mom? Abby calls from the kitchen. You setting the table? Yeah, I answer standing. When I walk in, she's already arranging plates, humming under her breath. There are only 3 of us tonight, me, Daniel, and Abby, but I grab one extra plate anyway and place it at the end of the table. Abby notices. Expecting someone? She asks, smiling. I shake my head. No, just a habit. It isn't superstition, it's promise. In this house, there will always be room for kindness, for truth, for the people who show up in love. The oven timer dings. Daniel brings out the roast. Abby pours the water, and laughter drifts through the kitchen, like music we almost forgot how to play. My phone buzzes once more on the counter, a final attempt from the past. I let it ring. The sound fades into the clatter of silverware, the hum of peace built quietly, one choice at a time. Abby raises her glass. To new traditions. I meet her eyes. To room for peace. We clink glasses. Outside, the wind moves gently through the trees, carrying away what's left of the noise that used to fill my life. This is what healing sounds like. Soft, steady, alive. No more shouting, no more begging to be seen. Just space. Just light. Just peace.